Kerri, how about you take this one first? This is from Jess, who says, I told my employer that I had accepted another job before the lockdown started, but I haven't resigned yet. Now my employer is telling me that I have to finish tomorrow and they'll pay out my notice. But I don't want to leave yet because the start date for the other job has been postponed. What can I do?
So this is a bit of a tricky one, but I mean, so based on the information provided, being that you've told your employer that you've accepted another job, but you haven't actually resigned yet or provided notice, well, your employer's actions are arguably grounds for a personal grievance on the basis of an unjustified dismissal. So, I mean, bearing this in mind, you could potentially apply for reinstatement with the Employment Relations Authority. That's getting a little bit ahead of yourself, but I mean, as a starting point, it might be that speaking to your employer and actually letting them know that their actions are unjustified. Well, perhaps not actually saying that at this point, but just saying, look, I haven't actually resigned yet. I haven't given my notice or anything like that. So I don't know if it was construed this way, but that's not the case. I mean, that might result in you retaining your job until you can start your other job. I mean, definitely would recommend checking the clauses in your employment agreement around terminating employment. It's actually pretty commonplace for notice to have to be provided in writing. So if you haven't done this, then that's another breach of your employment agreement. But on the flip side, there are also questions about whether your actions in telling your employer that you'd accepted another job could be construed as a resignation or not.
I was going to
So,
ask
for
that.
example, just kind of be like, have you done a handover? Have you talked about what you leaving the business is going to look like? But again, it depends, whether you have to give notice in writing or not. I mean, but in order to really give proper advice about this, in terms of whether their employers unjustifiably dismiss them, that'd require a bit more information. But as a starting point, you're definitely talking to your employer and saying, hey, it seems like there's been a bit of a miscommunication here. I haven't actually resigned. And just looking at their employment agreement. Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts, Tony?
I mean, it seems like they need to have a big conversation with the employer and get everyone on the same page. But what I suspect has happened is that, so they got this, they were accepted for this new role at this other organisation before shit hit the fan. And that role, that organisation then contacted them after the Rahui started and said, sorry, we're going to have to postpone your start date because, we've had to basically close down because of everyone else has as well. So she's no longer has a job to move into, and so therefore is concerned about money and doesn't want to resign from her, her outgoing role yet. For those reasons of financial security. So I think that's the context, and we have seen that situation, maybe not exactly with this scenario, but similar situations where people have been accepted for jobs, like we were talking about it earlier, Kerri, and then they no longer have those jobs to start. And now they're worried about their finances.
It does seem a bit cheeky, though, if I'm being honest. It turns out I'm going to need to keep this job longer because my other job, it's like convenient. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all about power to the workers, but it seems a bit cheeky. Is it?
Well, it's rational, though. It's rational. Like, you no longer have that job to go into, so you want to keep the job you've got. And if she truly hadn't resigned yet, then she still has a job. I think it's probably, I don't necessarily think you have to go above and beyond, but she's signaling to her employer that she's probably going to be moving on because she's received an offer. That's a good thing to do.
Definitely.
It's interesting that you talked about maybe that could constitute a resignation, but it sounds to me like there would have to be quite a high threshold and a lot of sort of specific circumstances to have occurred, and a process to have been underway.
There's a lot of case law around implied resignations, but I won't get into that now. It's some fun reading if anyone wants to look into that.